Oh, it's showtime. Okay.
Here we go.
I'd like to call to order a meeting of the Avalon City Council, which has also included a meeting of the City Council acting as the Avalon Municipal Hospital Board of Trustees and the Housing Authority. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could please have a few moments of silence for Dave Christensen. Please be seated. And the roll call, please.
Councilmember De La Rosa. I see her. Councilmember Lavelle.
Here.
Councilmember Ponce.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy.
Here.
Mayor Marshall.
Here.
And for the record, we have our city attorney, Scott Campbell, as well as our city treasurers in the audience this evening.
Great, thank you. Are there any announcements or written communications?
Not at this time from me.
Okay.
I just have some election
Yes.
announcements. Vote by mail start being mailed out on May 9th, so that's just in a couple of days. May 17th, the sample ballots start being mailed out. The last day to register to vote is May 23rd, and the last day to apply for a vote by mail is on May 31st. Our election is on June 7th. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We hope to be notified. The county told us 30 to 40 days out, so we're within the 40 days right now of where the polling location will be. We do not have that yet.
Okay, excellent. Department head reports?
Good evening, Bob Greenlaw, Director of Public Works. Have 3 items tonight. Green Pier Repair Pre-Bid Conference this last Friday. Staff met with potential contractors for the repairs of the Green Pier. This project will be small in scope, replacing 4 fender piles and 1 structural pile. It is considered heavy maintenance. The desire is to repeat this on an annual basis so that we can proactively address the heavy maintenance needs to maintain the pier. As such, the staff is filing application for what would be permits that would allow a program for heavy maintenance over a 5-year period so that we don't have to keep on filing permit application, do engineering, and then we can put more money into the actual repairs once we get a contractor signed up for that 5-year period. So this is a good test case for that. Fog program. So staff is ramping up the fats, oils, and grease program. That is a requirement of our state water quality control board permit for our operations. During the COVID shutdown, the program was downsized due to restaurants being shuttered. So now that the restaurants are back fully operational, efforts are being made to retrain the on-site restaurant staff. The on-site inspections will ramp up to make sure that everything is cleaned up and working sufficiently to protect our system. And then hopefully moving some of the sites into phase 2, which could require additional equipment from the restaurants to be installed. This will allow us to comply with our permit, but it also allows the collection system and the wastewater treatment plant to operate efficiently. And you can really see that grease, and I will as we start moving to upgrade the program here. You'll start seeing some presentations by me of what we're seeing in our system coming from the restaurants and what the interceptors and the activities we would do to clean, what it does for us, okay, to be able to keep our collection system and our wastewater treatment plant in working order.
Well, that should be delightful.
Yeah, it is delightful. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then Mole Phase 2, last week staff and the city's consultants had an update meeting with the project's major stakeholders. They've been working with us in a group. The latest iteration of plans for the design intent for the design build RFP was shared and input was received, and we're still receiving input on that. The next step is to hold that community meeting I've been talking about to share this latest iteration and receive input from the whole community. And our intent is also to get out individually or in small groups with the council members out there so you can see the project and we can, so you can know what we're trying to build firsthand before we come into that meeting. That meeting was originally planned for the second week in May, but due to conflicts is now being projected to occur in the first week of June. So potentially in that Thursday in the first week of June.
We also got a memo asking if June 2nd was good for us.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, then we'll
yeah.
firm that up. Okay, any questions for me?
I just want to say Devin did send us an email back saying she did firm up that date. She
Okay.
heard back from all of us right away, so
Okay, good.
that sounds like that will be the date.
Okay, for anybody that's out there, June 2nd, we're on a roll.
5 o'clock.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Warren Carr from Avalon Harbor Master. With summer quickly approaching, the summer swim lines have been installed. The club dinghy dock was installed by Harbor Maintenance just today, and the city end float is scheduled to be installed this Thursday, May 5th, with the shoreboat float to join soon after. Some line replacement and other odds and ends maintenance needs will be completed prior to the ramp installations. So access to the end float dock will likely be available after the weekend, depending on how that maintenance goes. Weather has been on our side all this week. However, we are watching the weekend weather closely as we expect possible gusty westerly winds to kick up through the weekend. And here are the numbers since my last report on April 19th. Patrol moored 375 boats for a total of 1,608 nights. Patrol took 1 accident report and responded to 1 minor medical. Patrol warned and advised 3 persons of municipal code violations and did 156 security patrols of the port facilities. As I was on my way down here from the pier, I saw Rosie Cadman out on the pier,
Yes.
and they're celebrating her 97th birthday tonight, but her birthday is actually on Saturday the 7th, but I thought how nice to see Rosie out on the pier.
Yes.
That was exciting, so thank you.
Happy birthday, Rosie. Yeah. Thank you. Any questions for our Harbor Master?
No, but I do want to say, Warren, thank you so much for working with all the members of the community for these events on the pier. It is so nice to see gatherings of people not waiting for the shore boat for the cruise ship and not waiting for a tender, but actually on the pier enjoying our pier. So thanks for
Thank you.
really jumping in and allowing those events.
I appreciate it. It's worked out pretty well, so thank you.
And Caleb for the wonderful food that's always there.
I'm telling you, great job, yeah.
Good
Yes.
evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Captain Joe Badali, Avalon Sheriff's Captain, and wanted to share an area of concern that's been going on with our younger folks in the community, and it's the use of a gel blaster gun. It's a instrument, looks like a gun. They're normally transparent, and they shoot a round projectile that travels about 150 feet per second and has a range of about 100 feet. And we've had a number of individuals in town that have been victim of being struck with this particular type of weapon, and depending on where they're struck, the individuals are likely to face a felony charge of assault with a deadly weapon, which is likely to produce great bodily injury, and we want to avoid that. So we want to educate them and reach out to the youth, and we have been talking to a number of them. I personally stopped a vehicle, a golf cart that had a individual in the back seat with one of them, and just want to bring awareness to the community and the parents that we be a little cautious about the use of those particular weapons. Moving on to some individuals within our community as well. We had great success in placing an individual from town who's fell on hard times. We had our outreach team come out and have put him up in a very successful program over town, and it's very well received by him, and they have full wraparound services that they're going to provide to him, and we're very happy about that success story. We have another suspect who was in custody, who was wreaking havoc for about 2.5 weeks, and we managed to get the DA to buy off on some of his charges, and he's being held over town in the county jail with a $200,000 bail. But he was just causing a lot of problems for the department, the deputies, and victimizing a number of folks in town. So very happy that we've got some resolution there, and hope for a good outcome, and hopefully some rehabilitation for him as well.
I have a question about that gun or whatever. Does it look like a pistol or does it look like a rifle? Like a pistol?
It's like a pistol.
And so what is its intended use, and how do people even purchase those?
It's a toy, so to speak. There are airsoft guns. They are plastic pellets that come out of an airsoft gun. These are actually gel. You can actually squeeze them and pop them, but they come out with such velocity that they can cause, serious injury and definitely a sting when someone's struck by them. And we had a couple incidents of that taking place, and social media is playing a role into it. Not so much here, but there's a TikTok rave about, the use of those and stuff. So it's gaining a lot of popularity with the youth.
Oh, okay.
I think one of the worries in general is you don't know if you're a deputy coming around a corner and you see somebody with one of these, and you've spoken to the community in the past about them, that you don't know what it is. The deputy's not going to know what's in their hand, and the kids are not necessarily intending to go out and aggressively hurt somebody. So they're not necessarily realizing that this could be viewed as something, or they could get themselves really hurt by brandishing something that looks and feels, and if they don't act upon what the police officers are asking them to do, it could be a bad situation.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Any questions of the captain? We're good?
No, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Matt Baker, Finance Director. Ran into some technical difficulties with our Facebook stream, but we should be up and running, so I do apologize the first couple minutes. Weren't on Facebook, but they can be watched later either on the city's website, and Channel 3 was streaming it, so I do apologize for that, just in case that gets brought up, but it should be streaming perfectly right now. Other than that, I'll be presenting tonight on kind of the operating budget for the general fund and the harbor fund and the general admin fund. Again, it's going to be a draft working budget. None of the numbers in there are final, but we just wanted to provide council with additional time and opportunity to review kind of the current status of where we're at with the budget process. At the next council meeting, I'll be doing a similar presentation, but focusing on sewer, salt water, and solid waste. Other than that, then the June meeting will be any questions that have come out of the last, or what will be the last 3 presentations, as well as a focus on CIP at that first meeting in June. Yeah. Other than that, business as usual in finance, unless there's any questions.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Community service. On Saturday, April 21st, we had a chance to honor 3 citizens who gave a lifetime of service to Avalon's youth. Jim Felix Sr., baseball and softball, Nancy Delahunt, Girl Scouts and Beach Bingo, and Steve Hall, coach and cultural connector. Nancy and Steve were present for the ceremony with their families and friends in attendance, and Jim Felix Sr., who is no longer with us, was represented by his sister Patsy with a large contingent for his support. Overall, about 30 people showed for the ceremony, of their names being immortalized on the Avalon Kids plaque wall across the street here. Also on that day, we got to honor a true icon of Avalon, Tony Zeiler. They call him Mr. Tony. We had him we pinned him as an honorary employee of the city, was upgraded to a golden broom and pan, and was immortalized with his own row of commemorative bricks at the AKP Park with his name and the work that he has done for the past 34 years in cleaning Avalon streets, schools, parks, and keeping them beautiful so we can remember how lucky we are to live here on Catalina Island. The next day, on Sunday, we held a quarterly community cleanup day led by Mr. Tony himself. All community members met at Avalon's Cake Park and went through the town for about 2 hours to help clean the city. Today, I met with a representative from Rotary, Linda Salo, and the representative from the Conservancy Native Plant Nursery, Lauren Mellicher, I hope I said that right, and the horticulturist, Roya Miller. We went over the planters on Front Street in Long Old Bend Park, the memorial, and the palapas by the ATM. The three groups, Rotary, Conservancy, and City, are working on a plan for planting the spaces as well as maintaining them. We are looking at starting in the fall when the plants are more likely to be successful for their transplanting, and I will keep you updated and present before starting the project. We have had some vandalization again at the skate park. So we are going to be shutting down the park after 8 p.m., locking it down until we're able to get the cameras up and running. I've been working with Pat in our IT on getting those cameras, so the next time he comes, we should have those, get them implemented, get them back up, and then be able to regulate the skate park a little bit better. Sign-ups for T-ball are still being taken. Kids aged 3.5 to 9 years old are welcome. We are trending towards 50 kids signing up, but are looking to add as many as are willing to learn. Go to recreation.cityofavalon.com to sign up, or just stop by City Hall, and Marissa will be glad to assist you. Also, we are taking sign-ups for the outdoor 3-on-3 basketball league and the 4-on-4 sand volleyball league for this summer, starting June 7th and 8th. It is a 14 and above league, so it's more high school and older generation. It's just $15 per person to play. Sign up at recreation.cityofavalon.com or stop by City Hall. Day camp, summer day camps, sign-ups have started today. It is $18 for 1 day or $72 for the week. We are very excited for the events and excursions that we have. We're working with the museum. We're working with Conservancy. We're basically working with anybody that we can get these wonderful excursions. We take the kids out to Two Harbors another day. The community at large has been great with being able to provide these excursions for our youth, so they can see the island and learn the history of the island and everything that's going on. So please make sure your kids sign up for this. It's going to be a lot of fun this summer. With that starting the day after graduation. The Primetimer event, May 25th. We got it all settled in. We will be meeting at 10 a.m. out by the plaza. And we'll be going out to the nursery, the native plant nursery. We'll be doing a little transplanting of trees, and then we'll go up to the airport in the sky, have lunch out there, and then we'll go down to White's Landing, where they'll do a little presentation for us and then bring us back in town. It's looking to be probably about a 3-hour excursion, and it'll just be for $10. That includes your ride, that includes the food, and all the activities that we'll be doing there. So please come see me at City Hall, and I can get you signed up. The City Outrigger program is welcoming people of all ages to come paddle. Do not be afraid. It doesn't just have to be competitive. Right now we're just doing co-ed. Everybody come on out Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5:30. We have 3 canoes, so we can take quite a few people out. And we'll be working towards a competitive group once we're able to see who might want to go in that direction, but we will be adding more days as the summer comes for morning paddles and evening paddles. But come on out right now if you're in town and enjoy a beautiful day out on the water. This Thursday is Cinco de Mayo. And the city will be celebrating with dancers by the local folklorical dancers headed by Brianna Morones, a band, Cinco Elementos, otherwise known as the Five Elements, a beer and wine garden by the VFWs, and food provided by Virgie's. Come on down. The event starts at 5 p.m. and the music will stop around 7:30 p.m. Old Man's Rugby is this Saturday up at Joe Machado Field, starting at 8 a.m., going till about 5 p.m. Then the party will probably continue downtown to the last man still standing. And last but not least, I would like to thank the Yacht Club for their latest donation. They gave us $5,000 towards a new outrigger, $10,000 towards our Wibbits to go back out in the waters this year, $3,000 for senior fitness courses, $5,000 towards repairs and new skate park elements, $1,500 towards our spring drive-in and family movie nights, for a total of $24,500. Nice. So yeah, it's really nice. So we really appreciate the Yacht Club for their continual support of our programs. Thank you so much.
So when you said the words Wibbits, was that the word you used?
Yeah, that's what the water parks.
Oh,
yeah.
Because the kids.
Yeah, so we'll be adding a few new pieces out there, okay. But we'll be making sure that it's safe.
Right. Are we going to put in the other big one, the big heart float, or whatever you call that thing that's on the other side? What's the other one?
Yeah, that's the one that they've been putting the outriggers on.
Oh yeah. That we're trying to figure out where we're going to put that one for the outriggers. We might move the outriggers out to South Beach, or we just might move it down a little bit, probably towards Blue Water. Okay. Well, Orrin and I will be working that out to figure out what's the safest place for that to be.
Good.
David, have you guys talked at all with the lifeguards and whatnot as well about that water park going back in and coming up with a plan for bad behaviors?
We've actually, one of the things that we're doing is it's getting moved to Middle Beach because it can't go out at South Beach this year because we don't have those steps that go into South Beach, and that becomes a really long swim. If somebody is injured, it puts more time and pressure on them. So we are moving it to Middle Beach, and we realize if it's out on Middle Beach, it can cause, it's already so busy there. But the idea of the Wibbit or that water park is really to be a water park. It's should be just a one track, and we're making it a one track, so you go through it and then you're off of it. It's not a place that's supposed to hang out, just like if you went to Wild Rivers or something like that. You don't stop in the middle of a slide. You go all the way through and you wait your turn. So what we're doing is we're taking that big roundabout out of the middle, because that's the piece that if you look at the box where it comes in, it says should not have more than 12 people on at a time. Mm-hmm. And we know that more than 12 go on that, and they stay on that. Mm-hmm. And so we're taking that big piece out, and then we're putting these wobble boards in, so you can't even stay on it. But it will be one track, so they'll keep going. We'll have somebody who will be at the beginning of the track that tells the next two to go, the next two to go, the next two to go, so somebody will be monitoring it, and the track won't allow you to stop somewhere and hang out. If someone does stop or hang out, we will stop all action until they leave, and then we'll send the next group through. So that's the plan right now with that.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you.
Great idea.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. That's it for department heads. City manager report.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I have a few things to report on tonight. First of all, I want to hit a couple things coming out of the planning department. We are actively working on our affordable housing projects, and I think we can kind of categorize these as two, both short-term and long-term, and both of them come into play a little bit tonight with the legislation before you. We're asking to approve the water allocations or to move forward with the water allocations. And this will apply to both 206 East Whitley and then our Civic Center workforce housing that Mr. Greenlaw and his staff are working on to come to you hopefully soon with some proposals and projects back here. So 206 East Whitley, we're obviously looking and hopeful to move very soon on that. I'm going up there, Bob and I are going up there tomorrow to go explore the insides of it to make sure we're all on the same page. We have plans in place to renovate the existing structures Because those are just renovations, we don't need water allocations for those existing, but also planning for the future of that project. We're very excited about that. The one glitch in there, which is we found out that that property is actually zoned commercial, which nobody really realized until recently as compared to the high-density residential, which is surrounded by. So we do have a rezoning in front of the Planning Commission that's coming up at the next Planning Commission meeting. Second of all, the shade structures that Dave has worked on, that the council has approved, we do have that going in front of Planning Commission for a coastal development permit. We decided to send it. It was in the gray area of whether or not it had to go or not, but we felt that it would be a good step to go, and that way it'd give the residents an opportunity to be more aware that those are going in and to know where they're going in, because we do quite often receive comments regarding the palm trees or trees that are dying and what's going on. So we do have a plan. We want to get that out there. So that'll be coming to Planning Commission soon. And then I do want to make a comment about we have been actively working on hiring staff in the areas that we are short-staffed, both at City Hall and in particular Public Works. Public Works has been doing an outstanding job short-staffed, but we do have a couple full-timers to fill vacancies that have been existing in their department to give them some help. So they should be coming on before the end of the month, and we'll have those folks on board. We're excited about that. Now finally, you have tonight on your agenda 3 MOUs for 3 separate labor associations, fire, management, and the confidential unrepresented employees. I just wanted to acknowledge that these are 3-year contracts that we bargained for with these groups. I appreciate that they sat at the table with me and bargained in good faith. They actively and passionately defended their members, and I think they were very respectful of both my role and the city's role in that process. I've done a number of these contracts in my career, but this is my first at Avalon, so I do appreciate all 3 of these units of how professionally they acted and bargained and negotiated. And I think it's a fair contract for both the city and the employees. I would acknowledge that the employees here and the city manager, Denise Ratty, at the time 2 years ago, did some things that were pretty miraculous and put the city in a position to get through COVID on extremely uncertain times. And they all should receive credit for that. And the employees at this time, I think through my process of dealing with them, I acknowledge that, and I tried to negotiate this contract with that in mind, that they did make concessions of some pretty significant items that they had bargained for. So I appreciate their fairness both then and now. And in particular, I just want to acknowledge the fire department. I mean, the fire department sat with me. They were very professional. They advocated for their members. I view them as leaders for our workforce and in the city, both going in and coming out of COVID. So I just want to give a shout out to those 3 groups and hope the council supports these MOUs that are brought for you tonight. That's all I have. If there are any questions.
No, very, very good.
Thank you.
Denise?
I just have 2 quick things, and just a reminder that our June 7th City Council meeting is, because of our election that night, that it will be on the following night on June 8th. Well, it's Wednesday, June 8th at 5 p.m. And I just wanted to thank Love Catalina for organizing a community shred day. And per the city's formal retention policy, city staff came up with 52 boxes that we sent off for destruction. And we probably have 5,200 to shut off. But, and a special shout out to Gabby and Devin for organizing it and seeing it through to its completion. They worked very hard on it, and it's quite a process to sign everything off.
Yeah, excellent.
Were we able to get all of our boxes in a smart car, like Jim?
And city attorney?
Nothing tonight other than I will be at the SCAG conference this weekend, and I hope to see at least one of you there.
I'll see you there.
All right.
Okay. Are you staying at the Marriott too?
Yes, I am. With Melissa.
Uh-oh. Okay, perfect. City council reports.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I attended Cal City's policy committee meeting on community services Thursday, and what we were talking about is tied into the sheriff's talked about, what David has talked about, and I'm glad that David presented to Rotary last Wednesday, because he gave me an idea of what we are doing with our homeless population and how we're trying to help them. So I had that information to go into this meeting with. But what the league has come up with is what the policy committee came up with was what we want to send to the board as what we would see as policy through the league. And granted, our focus this year with the policy committee is homelessness and mental health. And so I just want to read what this statement is. Behavioral health, Cal City supports additional funding and resources to expand access to behavioral health services, including efforts to assist California's homeless population, especially those individuals experiencing mental health and substance use disorders. This includes, but is not limited to, supporting counties in expanding community-based care settings to provide prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery systems. And in the meeting, the only thing we changed on this was we added the word infrastructure, because if you don't have that infrastructure, this stuff is not going to work. Because the cities that were speaking, that were trying to get things done, were in areas of counties where they don't have those services. And so you need to bring those services to them, because you can't make a homeless person go 20 miles to go get treatment. Granted, we're on an island, we were able to do that, but they came over here and they helped us on that. But being where we're at, being such a small community, for people who are having mental health issues, to have somebody who's not part of the community, I think is key, in that it opens them up to be able to talk freely, because that's not going to get back into the community. So, but it was very important about this being what the statement, what the guideline for the league would be, and so we're hoping that the board will approve this as our guidance with League of California Cities on how we move forward on mental health issues. And then I don't know if you all received the email in regards to the noise complaint on Whitley. It's very discouraging that you have people who blatantly break the rules to where it gets so frustrating that those rules may have to be changed and that person may lose their ability to rent. I would love to see what here in Avalon, what they're doing in Palm Springs with penalties for noise. I read a story in the LA Times this last week in regards to they actually have volunteers who are the noise police, and they sign in, they get the complaint, they will go out to see what the complaint is, and then first fine is $500, second fine is $1,000, and then it's up to $5,000. And they do that to the property owner, who can pass it on to the person doing it. But if we need to start finding people for them to follow our rules, that'd be great. But to have a vacation rental that is opening up their property to parties and promoting their property as parties, I think that is absolutely wrong, because that's not what this was set for.
Well, there's some other issues with that.
Yeah,
and I don't know, I'm sure maybe you got that email, but supposedly there's nobody to call on the weekends, and they don't do it on weekends, and then if they're somewhat fearful, then they call law enforcement. But it should be able to stop before that. And I thought we had a policy in place that after so many complaints, they go and they look at a revocation of their permit. Not that we'd like that to happen,
no. But we're giving the ability to make money off of your property. Then don't be messing it up for everybody else, because you can't follow the rules. Don't mess it up for those people that are following the rules. It's just frustrating. It's just.
So that probably went to some department to address, I'm assuming, like planning or something? Yeah.
It did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we are, if I could, Mayor, we are hopeful to bring some changes. I have some proposed changes that we want to bring back regarding that. We just have to address it.
Okay.
But it just, in the discussion just now, that came to my mind, and so I wrote it down. But yeah, it's just.
I really got engulfed in that article I read. That was just amazing. And then I started looking at little side articles on it, just thinking about things that we could do here too. But one thing that I hope that we're going to do is, a few years ago, we asked people to take the time to send us a complaint, because if we at the city don't hear it, we don't always get addresses and complaints filtered through from the sheriff's department. If they don't take the time to write to us, then there's not much that we can actively do. This particular property has garnered several complaints, and I guess I would really like to see, I don't want to say revoke the permit, but I would like to see a hearing of some sort, that maybe it comes back to the Planning Commission and that all parties can state their concerns and their case on it, and then, the planning commissioners are the ones that make the decision to grant it, and I believe it's in their jurisdiction to make the decision if they're going to revoke it. But I do believe on this particular property that it needs to have a public conversation.
I agree.
Is there any comments from the two of you?
I agree with having a hearing, but I think we should double check on if all the parties want to participate. I just do not want any retaliation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And they're yes. Well, the one house got egged, but that was by the people that were staying there, and that's just totally wrong. And I don't know what was the outcome of that. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I actually sent a request for a few different items to be added to the agenda at a future meeting to Dave and city staff, and I think that it's unfortunate that one property may now change some settings for everyone, but also it's at the stake of people who are living in town full time and may have multiple units around them that have similar issues. And I would rather have us have some level of enforcement. The questions I asked also had to do with enforcement and how we would be going about enforcing that, and the communication between all of the entities, the homeowners, the people who are responsible for the homes while the homeowners are away, people renting the properties, sheriffs and enforcement, and city staff, and how that process goes to make sure that there's a clear line of action, as opposed to someone sent us an email somewhere and we're not sure what happened with it or where it went or what it did. So just ensuring that everyone's aware of what those steps are, and making sure that everyone knows exactly what the expectations are coming into it. We went and stayed at a vacation rental in Temecula, had a great time. The owners were just on the side of the property and were very clear about noise. And it's I believe Temecula's, I want to say, was a several $1,000 fine for a first instance, no questions asked. And it gets passed from the homeowner onto the renter, not to the homeowner. So the homeowner does not have to pay it. The renter in question pays it.
Right.
So it's something that I think we need to review and look at, and make sure that everyone's clear on what's next.
Great. Yes. Okay.
We're the city attorney of Palm Springs, so I will look at their regulations and pass those on to David and planning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That's all.
Yesenia, Lisa?
Just two things to report on. Attended the island connectivity meetings this week that we had. A whole lot of movement going on. Not sure exactly what direction it's going to go in, but maybe bringing something to city staff and or city council at some point to review. And also attended the event at Avalon Kids Park, and was really thankful to be there and excited to have had impacted times in my life with all three of the people that were being honored. And thanks, Dave, for putting together such a great event. And everyone that was there was well received, and Mr. Tony had a really good time, so that was even better. And yeah, looking forward to a couple of busy weeks coming up. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Lisa? So I ran into the cable guys today, and they're starting to put up fiber cable for I think like where you are and all of that. But what does that give us?
They're
What does that
doing
do?
fiber to the premises. So fiber to the premises, they've started with a few commercial locations from Catalina Broadband. And the ultimate goal right now is that most people are on an older level of cable. And also that cable then connects to microwave as the primary provider of the signal. So the goal right now is to get commercial and then residential locations wired for what they call the last mile. So that's the part that goes into the building. And that fiber cable allows for a few things: 5G speed, 100 up and 100 down speed, which is very fast internet service and reliable internet service generally. And then it allows for, if and when we get undersea fiber, for all of that to be connected to that high speed fiber. And then kind of makes the microwave portion of the system the backup or the kind of redundancy for it for safety's sake. So you would have ultimately a pretty high speed system throughout town.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what they're working on right now. But that's the ultimate goal, is to get that laid in a lot of places, and it can be upgraded. It's very small, the ability to lay it into places and not have to necessarily run line, but to actually trench it. And it's so small you can literally micro trench it under a couple of feet of ground. It's pretty great. So.
Oh, thank you. When I was chatting with, they also were going to then go back around and try to take the old cable off. So
Correct.
It's not going to be, okay. Excellent, thank you.
Cleaning it up, yeah.
Anything else? Lisa, is that good? Okay. Yesenia?
Yes, two things for me as well. I actually have a follow-up meeting tomorrow with Dr. Tracy Carmichael from LBCC. Again, we're going to discuss their trip to visit, which will be a day before graduation on a Tuesday, but they would like to also attend the ceremony being on a Wednesday. And then we are in hopes of meeting with the seniors, possibly that Tuesday, just answer all the questions they submitted and any other questions they may have. And my last thing is, I am attending the California Contract City Seminar again this year in Indian Wells, and that's the weekend of May 13th.
Correct. Why is everything down at the desert?
I don't know. I think they always have it at the same location.
They do.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. It's because it's 102 degrees, and the rates you can get for the desert are very, very reasonable right now, which is why these entities schedule it.
Oh, okay. Oh,
We'll be indoors the whole entire time.
yes, okay.
It's a bit of a long trip, but it ends up being very worth it.
Yes, okay.
I just have a couple items. I also attended the Avalon Kids Park event. Thank you, David, for putting all that together and for all the staff's help. I was very excited to meet Tony's family. I was excited to be there for all the honorees, but in all of these years, I had not had the opportunity to meet Mr. Tony's family, so that was a blessing for me. I also had a couple different broadband-related meetings to continue dialogue, and it does sound like we're going to bring something forward here shortly to the City Council. And then I also hosted a forum for local contractors in town to talk about questions, concerns, and learn more about how we at the city could help the industry and really just, kick around some ideas. The forum was very well attended and garnered some incredibly valuable feedback and suggestions, which I passed along to our city manager. But really wanted to take a shout out to all of those that took time out of their day to come and very professionally and very graciously share concerns and lots of praise for city staff as well in how we can do better. And it was just nice. And I don't think we've ever done something like that, but it definitely felt that as though it made an impact to an industry that maybe sometimes gets overlooked in our community. So
when you say industry, you talk
contractors
and
all the tradesmen, electrical, plumbing, generals.
Yes,
So I'm very excited about that. But anyway, that's all the last thing is I was not able to attend one Zoom with a senator today, but we at the COG have several meetings scheduled with state senators stating positions on legislation coming forward, and of course always trying to keep Avalon on the map. So there'll be plenty this week and a couple next week as well.
Great, excellent. And Yesenia and Michael and I met with Lowenthal and his troop that was here yesterday. There's about 15 of his staffers from Washington and local. I guess they had a full day with the Conservancy in Edison and then visited with us for a few in the park before going to dinner and leaving. So we had to talk fast. but and you know me, I do talk fast. And anyway, so, it's just about the infrastructure, which they tried. And that kind of thing. And anyway, so it was nice. And then Mr. Maestros got to meet them. And I don't know that Catalina Crafters opened up Catalina Craft Corners where the hen house was on Saturday. And there's all the local artists that are in there. So if you need to purchase any gifts that are made by local artists, they're great. They're manning it and volunteer. I guess if anybody wants to volunteer to work there, they can as well. But it was nice that they were able to work out something with the Island Company to use that building, and it's very cute. And then, yes, and I'm going to SCAG. And, there will be no minutes with the mayor tomorrow since I will be gone. Okay. Oral communications, this is an opportunity for people in the community to speak on items that are not on the agenda. You'll be limited to 2 minutes and no action will be taken. They're all waiting outside, Jim.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I didn't time my comments, so hopefully I'll make it in the 2-minute window. This is National Travel and Tourism Week, and it is also the beginning of California Tourism Month. And in past years, I've come here with a presentation or invited members of the community to come and stand in front of you, but we're taking a little different tack this year. I thought I'd just share some high points. Each year in May, both U.S. Travel and Visit California celebrate tourism and its impacts on the U.S. and state economy. The first week of May is when U.S. Travel calls upon us as a nation to celebrate the local, national, and global impacts and benefits that tourism brings to us. They also encourage community members across the nation and civic leaders in visitor-serving destinations to vote in ways that will preserve and promote tourism economies. Further to that, Visit California designates May as California Tourism Month and encourages destination marketing and management organizations like Love Catalina to speak to local government and members of our community on the importance of tourism. With all of that in mind, I'm here tonight to share some important information with you and the community. For this year's National Travel and Tourism Week, we will be hosting a lodging open house tomorrow evening, commencing at 5:30 p.m. It's free and open to all members of the public. Interested attendees are asked to come to the Catalina Island Visitor Center at the bottom of the pier first to get listings and an order of a visit so that we avoid a crowd at any one place at any one time in the tour. There are 11 lodging properties that will be open, including vacation rentals and hotels. Refreshments and prizes will be offered at many of the locations. This is an excellent opportunity for frontliners, and members of our police force would be another great one to come and get a firsthand impression of what's available as far as lodging goes in the community before we get the onslaught of visitors asking everybody where they should stay and what they should do. In Avalon and in Catalina Island, nearly every job is directly or indirectly dependent upon visitors. In Avalon, transient occupancy tax is the #1 source of revenue to the city's general fund. In 2019, TOT totaled $5.6 million, and happily, year-to-date through February this year, it's at $534,000, indicating a strong recovery is underway on the island. And I'm already out of time, huh? Or is that my warning?
Can we let him finish?
Go, hurry up. If it's
Okay.
one or two
Hotel and
sentences, go ahead.
short-term rental occupancy in 2019 was 76.52% and 32.59% respectively. Year-to-date, those occupancy figures are 61.27% and 44.9%, with our competing destinations beating us most of the months of the year so far. The beating is especially true when it comes to our short-term rentals, where we've had no month so far this year that has matched or exceeded our competitive set.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. For more information, go to lovecatalina.com. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. And there's one thing a very important thing I forgot to mention, that the City of Avalon is placing a measure on the ballot to enact a 1 percentage point increase in the TOT, increasing the total tax from 12 to 13%, and reserving the increased percentage for the general fund, generating approximately $500,000 annually for general government use for a period of 10 years. We also will be placing on the ballot a measure enacting a 1/4% transaction and use sales tax, generating approximately $250,000 annually for general government use until ended by the voters. All righty. Consent calendar. Oh no, we have, how can I skip over finance?
Good evening, Council. The purpose of this budget presentation is really just to give an overview of kind of where we're at currently in our budget building process. I just want to caveat everything with that this is still in draft form. Previously, we haven't shared our budget with you this early in the process, but we want to give you the opportunity and ample time to review it before our June meeting where we present it for adoption. So the operating budget right now has been built based on discussions between city manager, myself, and the department heads. But all of the numbers in there are subject to change based on changes to revenue estimates, further review by management, and feedback from council and the public prior to presenting it for adoption. So I just want to emphasize that it's still in draft form. And as we get it closer to adoption, I'll be sure to highlight significant changes from how it's being presented currently. Again, the focus is going to be on operating expenditures, and so I've grouped them into the following categories: salaries and benefits. That's going to be your labor, wages, overtime, employer taxes, retirement contributions, and the like. Maintenance and operations, think rent, utilities, purchases of supplies, contract services, and then internal services. That's where we charge the different funds for admin's time, finances time, and the internal service funds that serve all the funds at the city. And then lastly, all the labor as far as staffing is presented as FTE units, full-time equivalent. So that's based on a 2,080 hour full-time person. So part-timers would be reflected if they worked 1,000 hours, they'd be reflected as 0.5. So jumping right into the general fund, looking at the top row is what we really presented at the last meeting, and that was focusing on operating revenues. So I have the fiscal year 20 actuals, so all the way through the 23 proposed. But this presentation is really focused on everything underneath, and that's the operating expenditures. So I've grouped them by department, fire, law enforcement, going all the way down. Fire and law enforcement accounts for about 45% of the operating expenditures in the general fund. A further 17% is really pass-through revenues. So both the chamber's allocation and the hospital pass-through is included in this number, and it makes up 17% of kind of the total operating expenditures of the general fund. So the remaining 38% falls with public works, planning, and recreation. Other governmental or activities, that's primarily the hospital falls under that category, but we also have some activity in our cemetery fund and a couple other smaller funds that roll into the general fund. Again, this is the same numbers from the prior slide as far as the fiscal year 23 proposed. It's just broken down based on the expenditure type, salaries, benefits, maintenance operations, et cetera. And then the full-time equivalent units. So again, we only have 10 personnel in the fire department, but because their regular work hours totals 2,700 per firefighter, that's how you get to the 13 number. There's still only the 10 people, but I still use the 2,080 hour baseline. Similarly, Public Works has 5.7. That's 5.7 allocated to the general fund. About a quarter of the Public Works staffing, or probably more like a third of the staffing, is allocated to general fund activities.
And that's including, I mean, that's anticipating 2 more people coming on to Public Works?
Yes. So I'm not going to go through every line item on the next few slides. I just wanted to provide additional information on how to read it. On the left column, it's summarized by those major categories. And then what I've done is broken down some of the categories into either individual accounts or groupings of like accounts. So for example, I combined communications and radio in the fire department. They're 2 separate accounts, but for the purpose of fitting it on one slide, I've combined it into one. And so I've done this for all the major departments. And so I guess my goal or ask would be for council, not necessarily tonight. You're welcome to ask me questions tonight, but take the top chance to look it over. And if there are questions, all the department heads provided this information for me, and so they should be able to speak to their requests. But I'm also happy to answer any questions on any of the accounts.
So again, law enforcement, on the law enforcement side, it's 1.7, and then internal services. What is internal services with them?
So on the law enforcement, we don't have the current contract for the sheriff, so I just did an estimate. So I put a 7% increase in the contract. Hopefully it comes in less than that, but again, I wanted to be conservative with my estimate. So most of the law enforcement cost is tied to that contract, but there is some staff time when it comes to either processing checks to pay for the law enforcement, or city manager's time coordinating with law enforcement on different activities. And so the internal service funds take the time from finance and admin, and then our costs are then allocated proportionately across different departments.
Okay, just like you do with all the other departments, you do with them as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason there's nothing in vehicle maintenance or insurance for law enforcement is the liability piece is actually built into the contract for law enforcement, and we don't service any of their vehicles, so they wouldn't be, their department wouldn't be assessed any of those related costs. Okay. So again, Public Works, this is the Public Works expenditures that fall under the general fund. Public Works does have expenditures that fall under sewer, that fall under the harbor. This is just the general fund portion of those expenditures. I guess the biggest item to pull out on here would be tree trimming, but one thing to note of that contract is we do have grant funds through our insurance, general liability insurance provider, and we often use those tree trimming costs as reimbursed. And so that number has increased from the prior year budget. I think it was 20,000, and we increased it to 45,000, just given the need around the town.
Matt, what falls under communications under that?
Communications, likely a good chunk of that would be if there are cell phones for city employees, or if they have walkie-talkies, but for Public Works, likely it's cell phones, or if they have any hotspots. I'd have to go into detail, but my guess is that's where the majority of those costs are. So in planning, again, not to go through all of them, but just to highlight, I do have a number of different planning documents at the bottom broken out. Those are primarily grant funded with a local match. This only shows the expenditure side, not the net cost of the city. Most of them are 80-20, so the net cost would be about 20% of that number. But again, this is just the full cost of the report, not the net cost of the city after the grants. Recreation, Dave and I have been working together to try to streamline and some of the way we are grouping accounts. Previously, we would have an account for volleyball, an account for soccer, an account for football, and then just say one year we wouldn't do volleyball. Now I have an account that's not used, and so we're trying to make it a little easier and more user-friendly also ultimately for anyone using the budget or looking at the budget. And so what we've done is we've kind of taken all the rec programming and grouped it into different categories: rec programs youth, rec programs adult, and rec programs contracted. The reason the adult number is higher than the other two really relates to some of the donations Dave has either received or is in line to receive for a new Outrigger, and so those would be charged to that account should they be received. Another thing to call out with the 4th of July program, there's really two major things. The fireworks are funded by the chamber, but the city does pay for the barge bringing them over, as well as the USC marching band. The USC band costs the city about $26,000, and the remainder of that is barge-related fees. Again, just some additional other general fund expenditures grouped with public works. Most of them are either cemetery or storm drain related. So that is the general fund. Moving to the harbor, similar breakdown to what we did with the general fund. We have the operating revenues at top, but since there aren't necessarily departments within the harbor, I've broken it down by the major expenditure categories: salaries, benefits, et cetera. A couple to highlight on the bottom is the Department of Boating and Waterways loan. That was for the last time we reconstructed remodeled the mole buildings, and that was paid off in the last payment in this current year's budget, so we won't have any expenditures for the mole as we get into mole phase 2. So it's positive to see. And then the other thing is, if you remember, I said that the Harbor Fund ended last year with a negative cash balance, but it's going to be able to repay the general fund within the current year based on the revenues it's brought in, as well as being able to reduce under reduced staffing and operating levels in the current budget year. So again, remember last year our budget really kept a lot of the same savings we had from the COVID budgets rolled forward this year. And so with the increased revenues, as well as keeping a tight lid on expenditures, we've been able to pay off that this year. Again, this is just another way breaking it down by how we code it from the accounting purpose. We split it between admin, operations, and public works. Admin would be the harbor master and the senior admin assistant. Operations includes harbor patrol, the 3 dedicated harbor maintenance personnel, as well as parking control and harbor sanitation employees. Again, like I mentioned before, public works has a portion of their time allocated across different funds, and so 4.1 equivalent public works employees are allocated to harbor.
Just a quick glance, the falconry program, are we looking at increasing that somehow? Has there been discussions on what our needs might be going forward?
If I could, there has been some discussions. We do have a proposal on that to increase it. I think at the meantime, temporarily through the summer, we're looking at maintaining it where it currently is, and then revisiting that in a few months.
Okay.
And then the majority of that contract is actually charged to the sewer fund as part of the CDO, but a portion of it does fall under the harbor fund.
So, and then I just noticed really quickly, the waterfront trash collection, that's Eddie Vega?
That's Eddie Vega.
So is there another part of him somewhere else, because he picks up through the rest of town?
That's something we can look at. Currently, 100% of his contract is being charged to the harbor fund, but we can look at how we're allocating those.
But I think his primary zone is Crescent from the mole to the casino or something.
But he goes up. He goes up Catalina, Sumner.
And I think probably for simplicity, 100% of his charge or his contract was charged to the harbor. And while I think the majority of his activity does fall in there, we definitely can look into how much of his work falls outside of the harbor, and if we need to allocate some of that to the general fund, we can definitely do that.
I mean, when you think about it, Cindy, I think you're right.
Yeah.
When it goes from Pebbly to...
And then when we speak of the harbor, it does include everything along Front Street,
Right.
everything going from the the casino to, past
Beverly
Lover's
Beach.
Cove. So.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay. And up and over the hill? Do we, does he do the, who does the trash at Buena Vista Point?
I believe the Island Company.
Island Company does?
Okay, so.
Okay, yeah, okay. Sorry.
So then in harbor operations, I did provide a dollar breakdown in the salaries and benefits, just because there's kind of 3 different groups that both roll into the operating account. So you can see it's harbor patrol, harbor maintenance, and the parking control and sanitation. The only other one to call out here is in utilities. We do charge the harbor for sewer, salt water, and solid waste assessments, and that falls under that utilities bucket. And so approximately $300,000, I want to say, of that number is related to sewer, salt water, solid waste assessments that I grouped with utilities. Again, with Public Works, I don't have a current estimate from the county for lifeguard paramedic services, so I put, I believe, a 6% increase on the contract from last year. So hopefully once we get an estimate, we can revise that, and hopefully we can revise it downward. I do have the restroom contracts and the waterfront trash contracts, which in last year's budget were 95% of the pre-COVID number. And again, the rationale behind that was we didn't have cruise ships during the first quarter of the year. Both those contracts have in the budget at 100% of what they were pre-COVID. The other one just to call out on here that if you compare to prior years is a little bit higher is beach maintenance. We did put what it would cost to put all new sand, or at least put more focus on the sand along the waterfront. So we have, I believe, 30,000 of that 38,000 in beach maintenance is related to that. And so if you're comparing to prior years, that account's going to look significantly higher, and that was what the request was from the department for that purpose.
Yeah, very necessary.
Again, the next looking at is the Harbor Capital Fund. So the revenues other than grant revenues in the harbor that go into this fund is the portion of the cross-channel wharfage that's dedicated for harbor capital activities. We do allocate a portion of the Public Works Director and the Harbor Master's time for managing the capital program in the harbor, as well as we have some capital maintenance costs that we do every year to maintain the floats and the infrastructure in the harbor. And so the remainder amount would be the amount that's left to fund CIP if we go with every number that we've previously put in. Again, these are all draft figures, and looking at the capital needs in the harbor, we're probably going to look for ways we can increase that monies available for the harbor, just because there are a lot of significant capital needs in the harbor, and 800,000 goes pretty quickly. So again, here's a breakdown of those, what we are charging to, I believe I need to update it up here. It says 10350, but it should be 10470. Just a breakdown of what those costs are. And then lastly, a breakdown of the internal service funds. And so this is the general admin fund, the insurance fund, and the vehicle maintenance fund. So you can see I've kind of broken down general admin further into elected, legal, admin, which you can think of the city manager's office, finance, and then general government expenditures. So the salaries and benefits for general government, that's our retiree OPEB pay-as-you-go payments. So that's how we can have 0 FTEs, but we can have money in the salaries category. So again, with the legal, I'm just using all estimates. We are currently working with Scott and BB&K to update those estimates. So right now they are placeholder numbers in there, kind of looking at last year plus historic. So again, just a reminder, all these numbers are subject to change kind of as we work through the budget process. I just needed to put something in there to try to show ballpark where we're looking at, but I don't want, these numbers are still going to change. I know I've said that a few times. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. And so again, in elected, it would be city council and the city treasurer. And we do have a training and travel budget for council that falls under there as well. So in administration, you can see we have election expense, as well as what I've done is I've tried to break down our membership dues because we have a number of different organizations that we're a member of. And so rather than just lump them together, I thought it would provide a little detail to break out what those costs are. So then in finance, again, similar, broken down the professional services or the contract services account between what are the major contractors that get charged to that account. So again, we use Whitman to assist with the medical billing for the ambulance. OpenGov is our budget software that our department heads use to help build their operating budgets. And then we also utilize a payroll software to assist with the payroll process. And then in general government, just a couple to highlight again, professional services IT, this is a placeholder number. We're still working with Pat to get what the final number to be presented, so I do have a placeholder in there. And then accounting and auditing, about 45,000 of that is our Davis Farr, our auditor's fee. I also have host compliance as our kind of vacation rental monitoring auditing software. Just a quick update on that. Finance has been utilizing that. We've sent out 10 notices to properties that were out of compliance. Generally, they're licensed and they have a CUP, but we haven't seen any TOT payments. And the benefit of this software is, whereas before it could be a situation where the vacation owner isn't actively renting, and so that's why they haven't been reporting anything or reporting zeros. But now we have the ability to see whether that's actually the case, and so we've sent out a number of letters to those properties, and we've actually started collecting on that. So while it's $25,000 for the software, it's going to pay for itself this year and then some, and hopefully we get those taxpayers in the system and paying going forward. So I definitely think it's a value-added software for my department. What's also in there that's not as apparent is we do use some software to help with our actuarial financial reporting, as well as some lease accounting reporting, and so that's how that number gets up to 80,000 there. Again, these are placeholders in the insurance fund. In the insurance fund, and it looks like I am missing our Parsac Sierra number, which I do have in the final numbers. It's just not included on this slide, so I will update that before I publish this. But again, these are our placeholders. So what would go here would be our BB&K assistance on litigations, as well as any outside attorneys for current litigation going on in the city. And then the vehicle maintenance fund, again, just breaking it down for what falls under those maintenance and operation expenses there. And then lastly, since we allocate a lot of individuals across different funds, I thought it would be helpful to provide an overview of the labor breakdown that was included in this budget, but then rather show it by fund, show it by department. And so this compares budgeted FTEs, and so fiscal year 20, while it was impacted by COVID, from a budget standpoint, this is the number of people we had pre-COVID, if you will, in our budget at least. A couple things of note on that is we did have one position in Public Works that was included in that figure that was never filled, as well as the harbor included the fuel dock, and there was 1.6 full-time equivalents included in that fiscal year 20 number. So what I did then on the right was show the change in full-time equivalents between last year's budget year and the current proposed budget year. Again, these are all subject to change, but just wanted to show what the current staffing proposal was. Again, code enforcement, we previously grouped with admin. We've since moved it to fire, so it's not a headcount change, just more of a presentation change. And then the rest is a breakdown of how we go from 68 to 70 FTEs. And then again, not to go into each line item, what I did is I provided a breakdown of based on the position title within each department. That way council and the public can see how the staffing makeup looks across departments. And again, I know that's a lot of information, but I wanted to give council the opportunity to kind of look at where we're at in the process, knowing that all these are kind of subject to change and further review and discussions between Dave, myself, and the departments.
I appreciate all of these last few slides that show us where we were and where we are now. Public Works that's pretty dramatic decline, which we know, and we are talking about that, and you have mentioned it as well.
Questions by anybody, either on your computer or by the other council members or the audience?
No comments.
No? Okay. Once again, you nailed it.
All right. Well, if you do have questions, I'm always happy to answer them after the meeting as well, or the next couple of weeks.
I'm just kind of curious, and when does this come up? That warehouse, is there stuff that needs to be done to that warehouse? Do you have money to,
That's something we are going to discuss as part of our CIP plan.
Okay, good.
There's kind of a unique situation there in that we do rent space up there as well. And so if there's an opportunity for us to make some improvements, there's some potential for cost savings as well. Okay. So that's something we will discuss with our CIP.
Because I think I saw the rent was $75,000 for that warehouse or that property up there. Yeah.
So we do rent the space that our vehicle maintenance, our garage mechanics work at, and then we have the warehouse that is the city-owned space.
Right. All right. Great.
And Mayor, just to note that we will be doing some physical work in that warehouse area on that litigation that is pending with the school district.
Oh, that's right. I recall now that you say that. Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, we will move to the consent calendar. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Mayor and council, tonight on the consent calendar, we have the following. Approval of the minutes from the April 19th, 2022 regular city council meeting. Approval of the disbursements for April 11th, 2022 through April 22nd, 2022, totaling $760,554.24. The fiscal year 21-22 third quarter treasurer's report. Requesting to adopt a resolution accepting this 21-22 third quarter treasurer's report. Item 4, findings to continue to hold remote teleconference virtual city council meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361. Once again, we are seeking to determine that the COVID-19 state of emergency proclaimed by the governor still exists and has been considered by City Council in deciding to continue to have teleconference meetings, and that the state and local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing in connection with COVID-19. And that as a result of the COVID-19 emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees. Finally, item number 5, resolution adopting the memorandums of understanding between the City of Avalon and the Internal Association of Firefighters Local 2295, management employees, and then confidential unrepresented labor associations for the contract period beginning July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. We'd ask council to adopt these resolutions, adopting the MOUs as set forth with IAFF, management, and confidential unrepresented. And then the following item is on the consent calendar is the City Council acting as the Avalon Municipal Hospital Board of Trustees. That's acknowledge the receipt of the CEO's board report, the CEO's April 2022 report. Thank you.
I just have a question. On the memorandums of understanding, is there a reason we started them July 1 and not sooner?
Well, what happens, Mayor, in the MOUs themselves, it starts July 1 because the old ones expired June 30th. However, there's a provision in there regarding the salary provisions, and if council approves it, the salary provision shall begin the first full pay period after the approval. So that will begin immediately.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But the term of the contract is a 3-year contract beginning July 1.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you, that's great. Okay, does anybody want to pull anything, or do we reserve?
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 through 6.
7.
I'll second.
6. 1 through 6.
Second, sorry.
Oh, second. Okay. I thought you said
My word
seven.
came out like I looked at the number 7 but meant to say second. I apologize for that, Lisa.
Motion and a second. Call for the vote. So who was my second? Cindy or Lisa?
Lisa.
Lisa's going to take it since she said the right number. Okay. Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall? Aye.
Can I make a comment now that we took the vote? Thank you so much, David Maestros, for all of your work and effort, and thank you to all of the 3 organizations that came to the table. That was phenomenal, and what a wonderful process. We've been through a couple of them, and I think that I know we really appreciate being able to recognize the staff at this time. We've kind of been needing to do this for a few months, and thank you for making that such a priority in your first couple months here. And to those that came to the table, thank you.
Yes. Okay. Item number 7.
Item number 7 under general business, it's a transportation permit transfer for Island Bikes to Martin Leva. We have, I believe, Devin is here to present this issue to council.
Good evening, City Council. I'm Devin Hart, Administrative Analyst. Tonight before you is consideration of a transfer of a transportation permit of 30 electrical bikes from Island Bikes, that's Matt Affolter, to Martin Leva. I looked around the chamber a moment ago and noticed that Mr. Affolter and Mr. Leva are not present. Mr. Leva was aware that they'd be on the agenda tonight, but I was remiss in contacting Matt Affolter to make sure that he was going to be here tonight. Still before you, though, is the application for the bike transfer. There's no brick and mortar location, so it's just transfer of the permits only, and then if approved, the applicant would be required to come back and provide an operations plan, as well as have his brick and mortar location approved by you.
Okay. As much as, everybody's complaining about the e-bikes, this is something that we said could be done. And so I can't renege on that one, other than we need to find a safe place.
A safe place, yeah. So the nice thing is that all we have to worry about tonight is, would we agree to transfer these permits from Mr. Affolter to Mr. Leva? And I'm fully in support of that.
All right. Are there any comments, or somebody comments or motion?
If there's no comments, I'll make a motion to approve the application to transfer the transportation permit from Island Bikes to Martin Leva, permitting 30 electric bicycles for rental and guided tours. And 2, if a transfer is approved, require Mr. Leva to return to the City Council with an operations plan adhering to all conditions set forth in the Avalon Municipal Code and Resolution 21-07 by no later than April 30th, 2024.
I'll second that one.
Also,
Oh.
can I just ask real quick?
Yes.
Just making sure on the approval of this, were we going to look at doing any level of extension for that as well? That he would have, is it 2024, right?
Yeah, Lisa, as I understand it, we are transferring the permits to under the existing term, and then when Mr. Leva comes back to present his location and whatnot, we would be able to look at an extension of time or restarting the clock for him of something else.
Perfect.
That seems correct, right, Devin? Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you. Yeah.
No.
Thank you. Good.
Are there any comments, Denise?
None.
No. Okay, there's been a motion and a second.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. And item number 8.
Item number 8 is the following item of general business is the City Council acting as a housing authority, and City Council and Bob Greenlaw is here to present this.
Oh.
Good evening, Bob Greenlaw again, Director of Public Works. The item before you is a request so we can submit a water allocation for 2 housing projects that we're currently working on. So some background for the record and for those at home. Back in 2017, if you recall, we were working on housing development with Cottle and Cottle for low mod housing back up in the Tremont Street up in the canyon there. That project at that time was shelved for several reasons, and one of those being water allocations, and is no longer being pursued at this time. So that 2017 project did make application for water for the city as the applicant, because we directed the developer to do that for us, and that was for 10.3 acre feet, so quite a sizable amount of a water allocation. And so now we're interested in moving those water allocations to the 2 projects that we've been discussing with council and the community. And the first one is at 206 East Whitley, and that's a low mod site. We currently have 4 units there that are in a apartment building, and then we have 1 unit that's an old cottage. And the old cottage, we're planning on demoing. It's beyond its useful life. And then the 4 units, we already have rehabilitation of those. We're working on the final steps of that, and then also to improve the sewer line. We're working on that right now too. So our proposal for a second building that potentially could replace that cottage, that 1-bedroom cottage, and then potentially could have 5 more units, so 6 additional units for a total of 10 units just for a water allocation basis. We can, as we move forward with the project, we can discuss what the actual number of those units are, whether it stays at that 10 units or gets less than that, to make the site development work for the neighborhood. And that's programmed, we've been talking about that, that's programmed under Capital Project 205-016, and the one I was talking about, the rehabilitation, is programmed under Capital Project 205-015, if anyone wants to review in our capital improvement program on the Finance Department's webpage under our CIP. So those are, you can see those projects. The second project is what we've been working on also since approximately 2017, is what we do with workforce housing. And in developing the Five Corners project, we were challenged with how can we create real estate that the city owns and controls and make that available for workforce housing. We found that, and within our Five Corner plans, you see where that pad is, and it even could be extended around City Hall to replace a couple of the other casitas that we do have that are beyond their useful life, and we could get the bang for the buck by going in several other stories too. So that could be in the range of about 17 units or more, and we'd be working on that project with you too. So that's programmed under Capital Project 205-014. So neither of those projects have current water allocations, but we have discussed this with SCE staff, and that is available to us to move that over and get that done. So that's why we're before you today, to get that done. And just so anybody is concerned with the approvals of the project, this is only, the action is only for the water allocation, is to allow us to put that water allocation in. As far as getting further project approvals or discussing the projects, we'll be doing that just like we normally do with a project, what our municipal code directs us to do. So that's what you have in front of you tonight. And so I'm ready to answer any questions.
I have no questions. Questions?
I think it's great.
Yeah, but thank you. When I first read it just very briefly, I thought, oh my God, we never were on that water list.
So we were, it's just that we were on.
I knew it was the
yes.
big one. Yeah. All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize city staff to submit a request to Southern California Edison to transfer water allocations from housing projects no longer being pursued to housing projects at 206 East Whitley and the City Hall campus.
Great. I'll second.
No comments.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Aye.
Councilmember Lavelle?
Aye.
Councilmember Ponce?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Cassidy?
Aye.
Mayor Marshall?
Aye. Well, there's no further business. Good night, Tony, and meeting is adjourned.
Good night, Tony.